Friday 24, 2020. This is still from Łódź, Poland. It's not that I plan on leaving or anything, but I just want to give a good explanation today. A whole variety of subjects. This is just a video and a go. What exactly future holds on it for Poland. And it doesn't concern only Poland, it concerns, well, pretty much everyone else, because it's pretty much the deal. They are looking for whatever they can get one, and any time is a good time. We'll be talking to you about banks, credits, financing, whatever you want to call this. Something Poland appears to be proud about. Yeah, it's like you would go and boast about credits. Now I know Donald Trump had a point. He did have a point. He made a point to the people he used in MK Ultra that there would be these subjects he would starve, like myself, broke financially completely. He just wanted to get himself a car so he could get to job, to work. Maybe, if only possible, even buy something so they wouldn't have to go and rent around the landlords like this. This was the deal. Dzień dobry. And so it appears to me as if Poland was just, I know there are advantages over credits, sure, you can use the money, you can make an investment. There's no better investment than investment in your work, in yourself basically, you know, and then it's a car investment, stuff like this that make maybe work commute accessible, easier for you, whatever the case might be. Those are things you invest in, you know, necessities. Basically, that's like type of credits people probably should take. And I'm not a credit advisor, loan advisor, anything like this, but I know something a little about loans too. And I'm going to start, and then I'm going to merge on a broader scale from my landlord, from my present landlord. Although this was a situation with every landlord, but with no one more extreme than with this one here. This individual, when we first met, 97, this was just a worker in Austria. He got on the pictures with the Austrian people, actually. He just happened to be from this area, somehow find out what went on, and it adds up to him pretty well. But for the cost, basically he had to sell himself completely. Now, what do you mean by this, sell himself? Now, what exactly was the deal? And it exactly pertains to politicians we have. And this isn't only about Poland, only in Poland. Also, it is in Poland more than anywhere else. This is more present in Poland than any other Slavic country, what I'm talking about. There is nothing like this anywhere else. So he started as a worker over in Austria, and he's looking for a place for a house here around in this area, because this is where he's from. I think he's from Pabianice or whatever it is. I don't know precisely, but very likely it's a city not too far from here. This is how it all started. So he got on the picture, and they help him out, find the property, and then actually first loan they got him approved. Where was it loan, or was it the property? Doesn't really matter. I used to sell real estate in the States. I had the license for the real estate, timeshare, car sales. So like I said, I know a little something about this. Got, they got him pre-qualified for a tremendous house. Huge house. Something like this that you would go and buy back then in Poland, this is just no way. Even if you worked in Austria, I think. But then again, I don't know what the deal was. He got a deal here through some mayor, somebody like this, some person that was politician that assisted him. But for that contract he signed and for that loan he signed, he literally had to give his soul away. And maybe not even so much, because there's a whole lot about this owner stuff I didn't talk about, and that concerns his own family, his own son. That would actually, I think, freeze blood in your veins. Because that boy was completely normal. 7th grade, something like this it was. No, we came, it was a winter. There was a major disagreement. I don't know what the hell went on. I have no idea what went on. But this place was connected to psychiatry before. And before you know, his son, and he had another kid, his son no longer was in there. It was, I have no idea what happened. Ever since, this was a completely different person. He complained about him. Son didn't like my views, and you wouldn't be normal if you would like my views on the MK Ultra, because me, drugged up, pissed off about what went on, I was a very unhappy person to be brought like this from the US on a plane here, Poland, for torture. Lifted from the bed in Miami and brought here. And believe me, stuff that went on, you can trust me, this was something that I hated in the US to deal with this Nazis. I hated. I hated as much as I possibly could. But when I was brought here, this was actually worse. It was so bad, and in fact, just like my ex-landlord, who was not really a landlord, but he, you know, the Bucking Pass is like a disease, man. This is like a cholera, like a virus, man. They go around the world, and the only thing they do is, wherever they have certain interests, they associate people that are in their system, like in Canada, US, Britain. And then what they would do is they connect with them and give them credits. This guy too got credit. The guy from Grotniki, the landlord of Immigration Center too, got credit. The hostel guy over there in Zgierz, where I was, he too got credit. They all got fucking credits, every one of them. The landlord from Kurak, from Zgierz, he too got all kinds of assistance. End up his daughter and his son-in-law end up in Britain with very lucrative employments and stuff like this. It's like a virus that goes around, it's just looking for this, and then what they do is they embed these people into certain scenarios, and then they use these people through these certain scenarios to literally kill other people. And if crime ever went as far as possible in respect to this, and this shit exceeded norms of Soviet Union, and someone wants to talk about this, is like the worst disease we have ever seen. This is literally, they talk to me about George Orwell, Orwellianism and stuff like this, but I didn't have idea that some shit like this is actually possible. But today, if you look into inside of European Union, you're going to see a bunch of parliamentarians, you see a bunch of people that actually imitate Orwellianism. You're going to see a bunch of people with all kinds of signs over there on a TV, doing all kinds of signs, I don't know, imitating whatever devil, whatever, worshipping. That's what they're saying, that they're worshipping, that it's aliens. But the language itself, this kind of language that you hear also through the media, you see this completely nonsense news and stuff like this. And you don't see the news that actually matters. It's not the media, folks. It's a news that is actually used for these people to communicate with one another. The people that communicate regularly, on a regular base, before they become presidents, before they become prime ministers and so on, ministers. But once they settle in those positions, these people monitor it. They are afraid to just communicate just like this, openly. That's why we have this major, interchanges between when people go abroad and for visits and stuff like this, and it's all kinds of stuff that happens. Negotiations, because they are afraid to communicate directly, just over the landline, just like this, just something like that. It just doesn't happen. They are afraid of their own services. They are afraid of their own security services because it's oftentimes they break laws, they break constitution. I don't have to remind you who does that. Pretty much all of them do that. It's called Orwellianism. And what happens is, when you take these loans, the life of the people like this start to twist around lies. They embed themselves in lies. And for the contract he signed, for the house, for the loan, he had to perform torture on me. I was brought to this residence here for no less than 21 years. Here and there for several months, and tortured over there like an animal. Every time. Not in this house the entire time, but it would be divided on different locations they would use. So in Poland, like nowhere else, I see like all the foreign banking institutions, from this Inc. bank, whatever it is, bank, all the banks. So there's a Norwegian flag right there. Today, unfortunately, let me see it. There is no wind blowing, so I would show you, but right next to the Polish, it's a Norwegian flag right there. No, it is. This is, I was here over 20 years ago. Before the company even started, Norwegians were here. They literally handed the money. They didn't even have that much money. But well, they realized that the investment like this, with such a huge return, is well worthy. And so they did. They invested and they pulled huge profits from within. This is a much smaller company that is now, much smaller. This was just, you know what this was? Oh, next time when I go, they wanted to drag me inside. I came here to apply for the job. I wanted to see if they have something that would not hurt my spine. Some kind of employment like this, something that I would not have to lift heavy objects and stuff like this. Of course, they didn't have anything like this, and they still wanted to get me inside the production area and so on. Why? Well, because I was here from the beginning, from when it all started. So I can tell you exactly which part of the factory was built first, and so on and so forth, you see. It's not like it is now. Next time, eventually, I'm going to even do this. Now, all these banking institutions they have, all this special financing, all this money that is flying in the system, well, let's go here. It's opening a new possibilities for the people of Poland. I think in many ways this is really, really positive, but in other forms, this is a huge, huge, huge balloon, you know. You know, if you ever heard about balloon payment, there's a huge, tremendous balloon that is forming underneath. Now in this developed world, an undeveloped world that really you can take a good advantage of undeveloped if you get the money, if you get the cash, and you get in the game on the right time and stuff like this. I'm not saying not. I'm not saying anything like this. This is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when this lies, once they get themselves into, and this individual didn't do this on his own, this owner, this landlord. No way. This was through the Kaczynski, this was through Duda, this was through Morawiecki. They study everything they know. Then they give approval for what's next. And so this guy, this is what he got this approval, and ever since this is what it was. It was all for the help. You know, from the beginning, when they got involved, Americans, Norwegians, Germans, Canadians, French, Italians, you must help this guy. Swedish king was here too. You must help this guy, but you must help this guy. Now, is it really for help? Well, it became clearly what kind of help it is. It became clearly what kind of help this was. The people who haven't done anything for these negotiations are multi-billionaires, like a Joe Bezos, Musk. They have laughed themselves in the late stages of MK Ultra to me, pointing me out what they have and what the fuck I had. I had nothing. I was actually acknowledged as mentally insane. I had less than nothing. I didn't even have a fucking health. I suffered from disease worse than fucking cancer. You're fucking healthy, but you are acknowledged as mentally ill and placed on a forced hospitalization. All right, cool. Okay. And there's nothing you can do about it. This is just more disgusting than any form of disease you possibly can imagine, to be healthy and not allowed to work. To finally be given the work after 30,000 job applications will be declined, you're tortured. Broken without a dime, just so they can break your spine through the work like this and stuff like this. It's actually worse than that. But this job at this gears that took place, this whole MK Ultra procedure, this was not built, you know, in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or something like this, or from 2015 or something like that. No. Not that I would be different in absolutely any way or something like this. It was just time to get rid of me, basically. From the beginning, it was all about, you see, you must help this guy, and then it turned into completely something different. Then it was time, basically, like completely different song to get rid of you, basically. I actually want to know about you, even if you ever existed. That would be like the best scenario they started to hope for, a Buckingham Palace and so on. This is what it turned out to be. I will not forget, is a Dutch minister, prime minister, very close to Putin. What he told me. He told me, unfortunately, we don't need you anymore. You're the greatest man. Through you, we got more than we ever got in the history through anything. But unfortunately, we don't need you anymore. It's Putin we need now. And so I'm sorry. You're good as dead. I will not forget this. I will never forget this as long as I am alive. Nobody will ever know about you, anything. I'm sorry. I don't actually remember his name, but I'm going to put him one time on the news site so you can see it. Yesterday, the people that pledged all the help and everything was gone in one split of a second. It was a completely different game. The owner, who was so eager to help out, All of a sudden he changed. It was a completely different song. From the beginning, this is the way it was, and always is like this. Dzień dobry. It's not a coincidence. It's always just like this. This always is like this because the first thing they do when they present you to the locations where you're going to be tortured, they create a pleasant environment. This is the first thing when you go to MK Ultra, the first thing you trigger are the early memories. The early feelings are good. Once you get in, then it start to come to you all the other stuff they have done to you. And this is just something that I think not even he knew, not even many other people knew. None of the landlords, I believe, they let him in, knew. But this is just the way it develops. Because once you sign that agreement, you know, it's always some extra help that is more than welcome. You have a house, I'm sure, home, or at least you did some payments at one time of one point of your life, whether that be a car payments or whatever it might be the situation, I don't know. But there's a whole lot that can be done when you have uncles like this behind you that they can twist your life like this around for good or bad, for worse or better, I should say, right? And that's exactly what happened with this gentleman. He got into this stuff, and then a nightmare started to happen. And the stuff that went on, yeah, he was a man that already from begun with, he had this is some other stuff I don't want to embed in this stuff right now, but you know, the credits Orwellianism that you see inside of the European Parliament, especially this Orwellian system, this stuff that is then demonstrated on a news and a media, like you would not even understand what the fuck they're saying when you look at that news. You don't understand what they're saying. Sometimes you got to ask yourself, what's that all about? Because a regular person would not get the meaning, but these journalists that this mainstream media they use their own journalists. They use everything of their own. Like I said, this is far worse than Soviet Union. If you think the Soviet Union was bad, Soviet Union was a toy compared to this stuff. All this stuff perfectly tops with credits, with loans, with the way of life, which they call spinning a coin. The way I see spinning a coin is a spinning a lie. It starts with the lie that only grows into a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger lie. Sometimes in 2015 I was told by British, no way you're gonna make it. All these landlords, you know how they were presented to me? Like a train of people that is going to come on my side and they're going to help me out. If you play a song of Andrzej Duda, he make a rap song. Yeah, they're going to make they're fighting a thick fog. Yes, he told me he's going to do it. And he presented to me this lie as something that he's going to try to help me, that he's going to try to remind me that I just have to stick blindly with whatever you do with me, basically, okay? Now, you just happen possible you go fucking nuts by sticking, basically keeping your mouth shut when they irradiate you so much that you have a spasms on your legs and stuff like this, that you're all fucked up. You don't know what exactly the consequences might be. This isn't fun. You have no idea what happens when they do this shit to you at night time when you go to sleep. What kind of pain this is with the spasms and stuff like this. No, you have no idea what this is. What kind of games these are. You bet if you have an injury, if you happen to have an injury, you bet the injury can be intensified through certain ways. You better believe that. You can trust me on that. when it comes to grand notes, and this is what this was all about, there is a poetry that can be done with a human being. And that kind of poetry, I believe, I'm pretty certain, ends up with a cancer in the end. It ends up with dialysis and all kinds of really even more twisted problems than broken spine, if that's not bad enough. To them it doesn't matter, to the politicians it doesn't matter if you can bring to the table, you could get financing, you could get money, you could get whatever you would get, whatever you would bring to the table, it does not matter to them. They see the patriotism, the way they see patriotism is by basically just using a public opinion to get their coin turned, basically. Their side of the story go. And I'm afraid that what we have learned from the European Union, what Polish politicians learned from the European Union and how it's done, is not going to definitely bring any fortune, any luck to these people here. The Orwellianism, what happens with Orwellianism, these lies are growing, and the politicians like this, the only thing that happens is they completely detach themselves from the population because they live life of the coin. They learn to spin the coin. They no longer communicate with the people other than when it's necessary to go to vote. Other than that, it's all Orwellianism that we see through the news, through the media, and so on. And most of the stuff is the one that we don't see. This is the one that I reported, what happens years ahead. These people become ministers, prime ministers, presidents, and so on. So when you're talking to me about this kinds of, investments, money, on how, Poland got credit, Poland this special financing, this and that, I'm just going to say Angela Merkel guaranteed me personally that this one, definitely Poland, is one that will not get away. She eyed two countries. One was the Czech Republic and the other one was Poland. And she's pretty damn sure for both they're not going to get away. She guaranteed it. For things to get worse, because it's everything you see here, it's foreign corporations, basically, companies. Germans are using Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia too. They're using them to misrepresent the sovereignties of these stated countries to some third party, let's say, like somebody unfamiliarized, let's say Asia or Africa, and it gives them extra leverage because they go in their countries, they meet with the business people, with the presidents, and they just basically push us away without us even knowing anything. They say, basically, we are owners of the Poland. We own Poland. What do you mean? You're going to do with them, you're going to do this. They make impression already. They are in charge of this country. And if you don't believe, come to Poland, you're going to see stores, you're going to see businesses, you're going to see everything. And then you're going to say, yeah, let's say, if you're Asian, let's say that you're South American, whatever, from somewhere else, that you're not familiarized with this. No, I don't like it. I don't like to use this, well, let's say, wide world. Then that's exactly the type of impression you will get. And people like this, when they get this kind of opinion, when they get this kind of view, they tend not to deal anymore with the countries like this, because what they would do, they rather, you always, when you go, you always will try to go and get to the wholesaler. In fact, if you're buying from a wholesaler, you will try to get the wholesaler of the wholesaler, not a retail if you are in business. And countries that say represent businesses, if you want to see that on a different module, if you want to see this in on a different picture, right? So that we don't count, and these are the things that people who gestured that, you know, what Duda said, I don't know, that he lifted out of the property 1 or 3 million Polacks and stuff like this. Well, it's like this. In 2005, in 2006, the latest, it was Qatar people, it was Saudi Arabians, it was people with biggest wealth maybe on earth. People that can invest money, almost unlimited amount of money in you. People that would blow whatever British and even Americans all together insisted they're gonna invest through me. If I can prove this case, if you can prove this case, well, in 2005, 2006, Polish politicians, the people knew nothing about this. And Slovenian president, because it was such a big thing, now Slovenian president, back then not. News went all the way to Moscow, to Putin, because it seems like all these Slavic leaders kind of have the final say of whether that will be good or that will be bad, or how would things develop and this and that. It came with a negative resolution. It came on a negative resolution. They have actually declined these people who really would provide. These people who today, if you take time, and if you take somebody like myself in consideration versus, let's say, Elon Musk versus, let's say, Joe Bezos, and believe me, I eat these people for breakfast, would have a totally different view of the world than what they have now. It wouldn't be about saving 1 or 3 million Poles, you know, from the total poverty, whatever that means. I have no idea, because saving people from a total poverty doesn't mean that you save them, you know. These are still people that can just slide back into poverty just at any time. If these are the numbers to trust at all, you know. What they did was they rather declined that stuff. They didn't want anything to do with it. Boris Pahor said, it's something that nobody's gonna find out about anyways. It is true. And you go over the recording of the hostel which I mentioned, this Odyssey, you can hear the guy mentioning there were people over there from Qatar and so on, from Arabs, literally, no, kings, billionaires, super billionaires, people loaded with more money than what you can possibly count. And Poland instead, it was not the Poland who did, it's the people who knew nothing about what went on, pushed to me forward as an excuse. We decided to do it the other way. We wanted to go through MK Ultra just the way it was, the whole program. You're gonna have to do the whole thing. Eventually, you're gonna have to prove. We decided we're gonna go through the whole thing because we think that maybe you're Nazi, you know, maybe your views are like this, your views are like that. They're no good. You could cause us harm. It could be this, it could be that. It was a lot about me being bad person, bad, evil Nazi. And it was about the money, about the Britain, especially about the Britain. Britain is gonna be. Don't even think about saying anything about the British royals, because it was a British royals that I don't even know, according to Kaczynski, that a British parliament, they are so fucking bad people, all of them, but it's only the British royals that can save this country. This country, everything this country has is thanks to the British royals. So just shut up about the British royals. Talk anything you want, but never say anything about the British royals. That was like #1 lesson for me. And so it would be easier and better for Poland to go and do it just as they have agreed. But you know, one thing I cannot forget is Kaczynski. I cannot forget Kaczynski insisting on about his views on the country. That country should be just, not just anybody should invest in this country. That the country should be just white investors. They should be the one investing in this country. This should be just exclusively investment opportunity for the white people, not of any other races, including Asian. I'm going to put it this way. This is just a definition of Kaczynski, the way Kaczynski saw it. Talked even about the border, and this was not one time. He was fascinated about the World War II. Why would somebody want to do this? And he got in his head the idea that if there would be less difference between the population on one side of the border and the other side of the border, there wouldn't be no war. The Hitler would not have the reason to invade one. But when you approach the border and on one side you see a completely different person, complexion of the person, then yeah, you feel like threatened and stuff like this. This is the shit that came out of his head, literally. So all that stuff, especially when I consider 2015, on how Andrzej Duda signed with the fascists in Italy agreement, all that stuff was nothing really about me being an evil Nazi, me being bad, money that I mentioned being bad, because this was already 15 years of Poland having tremendous amounts of money that could play with, doing real projects that now, and this is the people that pledged on me based on knowing me, basically. Based on knowing me from MK Ultra, that they wanted to invest in me because they were certain that I'm an intelligent person, whatever. I'm not boasting about it because it doesn't make me feel special in any way. Like I said, actually I was even angry about this issue because I cannot imagine that I would go through, and just as I was told by the Germans, you're not normal anymore. You're not normal anymore, ha ha ha. And this shit went on a million occasions, not on one. Yeah, you used to be normal, but you're not normal anymore. So don't think that I feel special about being intelligent or something like this, because I don't. Because if I would not be intelligent, and if I would not be able to recall, therefore, everything that went on under MK Ultra, I would be as fucking good as that. I would be tortured and dead, a live bird. Now, at least, if nothing else, the truth came out. So don't think, because I asked myself this question, and I questioned, because of this stuff, I questioned Polish conscience. I was angry about this. What about if I would not be? What about if I would be just blah 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 guy that does not know any better, and he's just saying whatever he's saying, and doesn't represent any kind of danger, doesn't represent anything really in this world, and yet he's going to be destroyed, he's going to be wasted. What about if I would be mentally ill? What about in that case? Would that make somebody feel better destroying me because that would be the case? That's stuff that really angered me, because I personally don't have nothing, absolutely nothing against mentally disabled people, let's say. People with problems, with disability problems, absolutely any. And I could be one, just like every one of you. And nothing would save me in this world. None of the people that pledged their help, their this. Today I wrote about this South African billionaires. Everyone I know. I even know those who are not billionaires and they became billionaires. Personally, I know. From day one. Through this case, they became billionaires. You understand? This is where I was. I was in the center of absolutely everything that happened in this world since 1995. I just want to wrap this video up now because there's nothing more to say. There's nothing more to add, really. The credits aren't making things any easier for anybody. Not necessarily. They can, they might. But before the credits, you know, before the credits, before even the cash, before the money, people have to vote for their conscience. They have to vote for what they believe is right, for what they believe life should be like. A real life. A real life, not some kind of a coin spinning that is worse than USSR. I'm just going to put it this way. So now you know something a little about this financing, how it all starts. It starts with the little things. If I go over with the owner, how it all went, it started with everything the best. It started with me being taken to the businesses, me being presented to the businesses, me being presented to the people. And that's why most of the Polish people wanted to help. They did. I just had to be a bitcher like this because I gotta wake up the conscience in people. Without conscience awakening people, there's nothing actually that can happen. These people, these politicians fuck up my dreams. If I go back to 2005, 2006, I'm afraid they're gonna fuck me up again. And this literally with my having more than sufficient amount of proofs to be entitled to what British, Germans, French, Americans have conditioned me would do if I somehow would manage to prove the case, folks, because this shit ain't about no more. And believe me, I have about 2 terabytes of additional proofs of shit that I have posted on the internet. I have much more. Mistakes I have done, none. 0, if you understand what that is. That's within the 2 years. And I questioned so many people. I interviewed so many people, got so many things together. And yet, you know what's happening? It's not them, it's our politicians. I'm afraid they're going to do it one more time. And not even the second deal, that deal they talked about, it's going to be in, they prefer in 2005, 2006, not even that thing I believe is going to get through. Dzień dobry. This is why I bitched about, this is why I have to bitch about, because God knows, who knows. Maybe people are going to wake up and eventually something really will go for better. Until then, what's going to happen is, and this is how the countries die, you know. I got to explain to you, I started with something and I got to give you a good understanding why. It starts with the little lies, then this lies, what happens is, the politicians, they teach the politicians, like through the case of my own, on how to lie. They find the common interest, let's say, between the Republicans and Democrats. They'll tell you, they involve Democrats and Republicans. You know, it'll gesture that it's bad and for the Republican Party and for the Democrat Party to open mouths and tell the truth. Yeah, hello, good morning to you too. They convince everybody it's in their best interest to keep their mouth shut about it. That the only response to this is basically see nothing, hear nothing, know nothing, but in reality this is a school. It's an Orwellian school, it's Orwellianism from European Union. Now, this is not a USSR number 2, this is like far beyond USSR. This is where people actually, as citizens, not somebody, not some kind of a margin group in Slovenia after independence that they try to portray me that as people that are persecuted against because they are of other Yugoslav nationalities and stuff like this. I'm not saying that there is no discrimination and all kinds of issues, of course they are. But the thing about it is, if you're told to go register yourself, to do something with the law, to comply with the law, you are obligated to do so. These people objected to the separation of the country, to independence of the country, which at the time was a bare necessity. As you know, Yugoslavia exploded in a war, in an ethnic war of brotherly nations, as crazy as this may sound to you. So when stuff like this, when it's such an atmosphere, when Emotions no longer can be handled. When the people get killed on a mass scale, thrown out of their homes, exiled and stuff like this, something like this just have to happen. I'm not saying that Yugoslavia shouldn't be. I believe it should be because we have more in common with one another than we have with others. This is what I'm certain, and I believe that in unity there is a power, but there's got to be a respect, a mutual respect for individual, for the people, and so on. And in this case, as I mentioned, they try to push me, a marginal group, embed one into basically a human being that was born in his country and have actually even fought for his country and have obtained another citizenship, and they try to push me in the same category, basically with the two citizenship, one from the European Union, the other one from the US, as my being basically a stateless person within the system alone. So this stuff also doesn't go in the same basket. This also doesn't go in the same basket, this kind of stuff. If I would be in another country and something like this would happen, I would make sure that I would comply with the law of whatever country new was established or whatever. Okay? So that also is not exactly the case. But what happens is the politicians learn to lie. This is a school. This is like a school for our politicians from Eastern Europe that don't know how to handle lies on a scale like this. They handle other things, but this is just all new approach for them. And it's this kind of approach then that is used, just like I've stated, for the coin to spin in direction that politicians basically no longer see themselves as a part of the system, part of the country, as a part, but instead as a part of the elite. And the more they do the stuff like this, of course, the less they feel connected to the country, which apparently they represent. And so then what happens is, when you have this kind of a wild bank institution, all kinds of stuff running inside the country, it's a fuck-up that happens. Basically, the country disappears. The balloon explodes, basically. It's gone. Boom. At one time. If not financially, in every form, in every way. Look, this is Carrefour. There is media expert right there. They have all the foreign companies here you possibly can imagine. Everything. And they are proud about it. In Slovenia, we are proud about our own industry, the stuff we build with our hands, with the stuff we pay from our taxes, with the stuff that we built, that our parents, let's say, built for us, and that we hope to build for our kids. That's if we are lucky to have them. In Poland, this is not the case. In Poland, people are proud, and it's the same thing in Ukraine. I spoke with an individual yesterday. He was in such a rush, in such a hurry to tell me it's the same like in Ukraine. He didn't get it's like in Poland, he said to me. He didn't get me at all. He was involved in MK Ultra, and he had a good reason not to get me. I was nasty to him anyways. The point is that I never meant any issues like this. This is the point. My idea, why I was unsatisfied with all this stuff, had completely different nature. These people believe they brought me from the US, and I was like, they see themselves, they wanted to see themselves not through my eyes, because they never understood me in any way, but they saw themselves through something they wanted to see basically in me. On one side, when they came to the US and saw these limousines and this is what they believed, that this was the case with me. Nobody could understand why is it that I would not want to go back to Europe and stuff like this. Why? What's going on? But nobody, actually they did knew everything in a detail, but nobody, so I cannot say they didn't do the research, but nobody wanted to disclose really what went on. Regular people did know nothing about my life. Okay, so that's all I wanted to do. So did you understand basically what goes on in Poland and in which direction Poland truly is heading? This is in respect to, let's say, elections in 2020, let's say. Now, the stuff that's happening is just completely insensitive And when I say insensitive, and it's maybe something I shouldn't say, there was a lot of people hurt in this process. A lot of people. And not by me. And not by the KGB. By those who claim it was a KGB. By those who claim it was me. By those who claimed whatever they claimed. Not in a good direction. Very insensitive. And I believe financially extremely insecure in today's world. With having less and less impact, and finally fell under total German control. Not complete, but total, I would say. This is just the way it is. Today is July the 24th, 2020. Thank you for watching this video.